Here's to whiskey kisses with peaty taste of sin.
Greetings, whiskey folk, and welcome to the very first full episode of Drinking Out Loud. I am once again your host, Adam Bradshaw, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to my kitchen in these very interesting times. Now, one of the things that happened behind the scenes in the Dram Association, which you might not be aware of, just before the COVID-19 outbreaks, we were just about to announce two fantastic tastings that were coming up. And as part of those tastings that were never announced and cancelled before they even got going, we've got some very special whiskies that we were looking forward to releasing to you, our whiskey-loving brethren, I guess. And sistren? Sistren, is that a word? It sounds like part of a toilet. Anyway, brethren and sistren. Let's go with brethren and sistren. Anyway, so as we teased in the last video, we have a very, very special Blackadder release, and I don't want to overstate this, but it's pretty special. But before then, I'm going to take some advice from my high school gym teacher, who always told me that before sport, it is important to stretch. And for me, you know, drinking whiskey is somewhat of a sport, so I like to take that advice to heart when having a little tasting. And you might be thinking that this black box here is the special whiskey we're about to release. No, I'm sorry. This is one that I'm just going to enjoy for myself. This was a very special present that was brought back to me from Japan, from a friend of mine, Jay Wheelock, who happens to be the importer for Blackadder. This is, I'll show you the box. This is a Black Snake. Yeah, there we go. So Black Snake is a whiskey that we're kind of familiar with here in the Dram Association. We had one at our very first Blackadder Snake Pit tasting. It went on to score 95.11 points, which is absolutely mad if you consider the fact that before tax, it was around $120. That is incredible value for money. The story behind the Black Snake series of whiskies is a testament to the playful nature that Blackadder brings into their creation of whiskies. It's a single malt. It's all whiskey from one distillery, but we have no idea what the distillery is. They've apparently all of the guesses online have been wrong. I don't know if that's actually true. I'm sure someone somewhere has accidentally guessed the right distillery, but Blackadder have been incredibly secretive on their source for both the Black Snake and Red Snake series of whiskies. The Black Snake, what makes it special is a very interesting production method where they use a Solera vat. And what they do is they take bourbon cask whiskies, they take 3 of them from this distillery, and they put them into a giant sherry butt, a big large 600-ish liter cask that used to contain sherry. They put 3 casks into one cask. It's kind of the holy trinity, I guess. It's the 3 in the 1. But then after a period of time, they take about 1 cask's worth of whiskey out and they bottle it. And then they put a cask of a bourbon cask back into it to top it up again. And then every once in a while, they go back and they take another cask out and they put another cask in. And apparently then after a few years, they will actually put everything into a fresh sherry cask to keep the sherry influence going. Really unique, interesting production method there. And the naming gets pretty convoluted. So the one that we had in the Dram Association, I'll check my notes here, we had VAT 1 5th Venom. So what that means, it's the first vat, the original, if you will, the first ever vatting of the Black Snake, and then the 5th time that they'd taken whiskey out of the cask. They call that the Venom, the 5th time. This one, I'm really looking forward to cracking open. I haven't even opened this yet. I'm going to be giving you my first thoughts, I guess, right here on video. This one is a particularly special one because it was bottled exclusively for Japan. Interesting. Exclusively for Japan, which is also interesting. You might think that the red and the white circle here, mimicking the Japan flag, is part of that. no, that's actually just what all the black snakes look like. I have no idea why the black snake labels look like they have a Japanese flag on them, but they do. So this is vat number 9. So a more recently filled vat, and only the second venom number 2, the second time they've drawn whiskey from this. But the interesting thing about this one is, as it says here, this whiskey is from a vatting of casks of a single malt whiskey. It has been finished in a PX sherry cask. So that's something that the other black snake that we've had, and most black snakes, don't have. Pedro Jimenez sherry cask finish. Kind of cool. It's one of 378 bottles. Now, I don't know if that means 378 full-size bottles or 378 of these tiny little 200ml ones. 58.7% ABV. So this should be a pretty good stretch. We'll get a bit of a good workout, and hopefully we'll be ready to tackle the main event quite shortly. So let's see what the bottle looks like of this guy. I'm really, really intrigued. So yeah, once again, very, very big thanks go out to Jay Wheelock, who picked this up for me from Japan. Oh, that's beautiful. I like the dumpy wee bottles. It's almost looks like a tiny wee, almost like a Blackadder bottle or something. I almost think the Black Snake might want to think about doing all of their, or Blackadder rather, might want to think about doing all of their black snakes in this shape of bottle, just a bigger thing, because I think that looks just beautiful. Yeah. Very special thanks to Jay Wheelock. I got distracted by the bottle there. Jay is the importer for Blackadder here in BC and also in Alberta. He works for Fontana. Absolute gem of a guy. I really look forward to working with him on the Blackadder lineups as we go forward and explore the wonderful, wonderful, wacky world of Blackadder through our snake pit tastings. And yeah, let's crack this open and see what it's all about. My apologies. I think this is the first time that I've ever actually talked about a whiskey in the Dram Association and presented a whiskey which you can't actually get in BC. So if you're dead set on getting one of these whiskeys well, sorry, but chances are you're probably never going to find it. I will probably, if we get enough interest in the comments section here, I might do something. I might do something to make sure that at least one lucky commenter gets invited over at some point to try this, or gets to try this in some way. Maybe if you pledge a couple of cans to the local food bank to help out with the epidemic, maybe you can be lucky enough to come share one of these whiskeys with me. Maybe we can even video it. Maybe we'll come right here to the kitchen and we'll have a dram together once this whole thing subsides. So let's give it a try. This, interestingly as well, they're all individually numbered. This is specifically 276 out of 378, which is kind of cool. Let's see if we can get the pop sound. Love that pop sound. Oh, satisfying. Look at that. Okay. The color on these black snakes is just beautiful. This is a little bit deeper, probably from that Pedro Jimenez finish as well. It's just nice to be able to have a really good quality, a really good high quality sherry cask whiskey that hasn't been sherry to death. It's not a bomb usually, from the ones I've had so far at least. It's not going to detonate. It is just a really well balanced, well integrated sherry cask flavor into the whiskey. Yeah, again, this one, even with the Pedro Jimenez finish, it's not overwhelming. It's a very classic kind of style. There's no burn on the nose of this at all. The other thing, of course, as well as not knowing where this whiskey is from, we have no idea how old it is either. Cask strength at 58.7. That would make me... I mean, every whiskey's different, right? It's really hard to say depending where it's from and whereabouts it was matured as well. 58.7 for a Scotch whiskey of this kind of style probably puts it in around the... I don't know, 12-ish years old. It's really hard to say. It can range anywhere. But it's certainly not an overly young whiskey, which is appreciated. Young whiskey and sherry can work if the sherry is turned up to 11. When the sherry is sort of more subtle and well integrated like this, it works better with an older whiskey. And I think this is somewhere in between. I mean, I wouldn't call this subtle sherry, but it's certainly not blowing my face off. Beautiful, beautiful notes there of orange rind and cinnamon. Candied nuts. Mm. Oh, I love stretching. Yeah. That is absolutely gorgeous. The big difference with the Pedro Jimenez finish on this compared to the one we had in the last snake pit gives it just that little bit of a, almost a burnt fudge, burnt toffee kind of a thing on the back. Just kind of gives it an extra dimension to that sherry flavor that wasn't there with the straight Oloroso casks before. Beautiful whiskey. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna finish that off after I've finished recording. I'm gonna kick back on the sofa, stick Netflix on, and enjoy the rest of this dram. Leave it to open up. If there's any more notes to be added later on, I'll hit it up in the comments section and tell you all about it. Sorry, I just got a screen on my laptop there telling me I'm getting performance issues. I get a lot of spam telling me I might be having performance issues. I've never just had my laptop go blank and tell me that. Hopefully the video turns okay. As I was saying, if there's anything to be added to my notes there after it's been given some time to open up, I'll let you know in the comments section. But for now, let's put this aside and get on to the main event. Oh, that's good. Okay. So before I reveal the whiskey that we're releasing right here, I just have to give a shout out to one of our local distilleries who did something very special for us today. So a huge thank you to Sheringham, award-winning gins from Sheringham, and now they're providing people on the front lines of the liquor industry like myself with hand sanitizer to keep us safe during the outbreak. So thank you very much. I'm going to put some on right now. It actually smells slightly like gin, which is kind of fun. Not unlike an Old Perth whiskey we released back in January. It smells slightly like gin. This one has slightly more reason, though. It was actually distilled in a gin still. So thank you very much for Sheringham for providing with this hand sanitizer. Please do continue to, obviously take every precaution necessary while we work on this epidemic. And also, please do support local businesses, whether that's shops like the Strath or whether that is distilleries like Sheringham or Shelter Point, breweries such as Phillips, who are all pulling together in this trying time to help carry on a sense of semi-normality and carry on, and also provide a much-needed service to people living on the island here. So thank you, Sheringham. Slanjavar. Okay, so there is a little bit of a clue in the last whiskey that I just sampled as my warm-up dram. I didn't choose it by chance. It wasn't random. There's a little bit of a clue as to what the main event is here. So I already told you that it's going to be a Blackadder, so that's not the clue. The clue is in the fact that it was an exclusive to Japan. So Jay, as I mentioned, went over to Japan and he actually met with Robin Tusek. Sorry, Robin, I have no idea how to pronounce your last name. I look forward to meeting you, and please, when I meet you, tell me your name so I can know how to better represent you at these tastings and videos. But Robin, I'll just call you Robin for now. Robin and Jay had a fantastic conversation, and Jay introduced Robin to the concept of the Snake Pit tastings that we are putting together here in BC, and really trying to get more acknowledgement of Blackadder as a brand out here and some excitement about what they're doing with whiskey. And he was over the moon. And apparently we're going to get lapel pins at some point. Look forward to that. That's going to be cool, having our own little Blackadder Snake Pit lapel pins exclusively here in BC. But he's very supportive of what we're doing here. And I know that because we're getting some of the upper echelon, harder to get Blackadder releases, which are currently on the water, awaiting delivery here in Canada. They should be coming later in the year. I really look forward to those. A sneak preview, for example, we're getting a We're getting a rum cask Amrut. We're getting a heavily peated English whiskey. We're getting all kinds of fantastic things coming up in the near future. But there's one thing which I was not expecting, and one thing that they were so excited to share with us here in BC. They didn't tell me anything about it. They just assumed that I'd be okay with bringing it into the store, which they were quite right. I was more than okay to be hit with this surprise and spend money on bringing it into inventory. And they actually brought it in via plane rather than boat to make sure it got here nice and early to get everyone's excitement up for what we're doing here with Blackadder. So exclusive to Japan, that last Black Snake. Why is it exclusive to Japan? Why does Japan have exclusive Blackadders? Well, it all starts with the fact that Robin Tuchek is not just the Blackadder guy. He's been in the industry for a long time. He started off as a journalist, apparently. He's one of the guys responsible for the Master of Malt website, which started off as a bricks and mortar store, I believe, and is now one of the biggest whiskey sites in the world. And he imports a lot of whiskey to Japan. In fact, they have their own series of whiskeys there. I think River something. River Law. I don't know. I've never had one. They're only available in Japan. But yeah, they have their own series of whiskeys only available in Japan. And he's very involved in the Japanese whiskey scene as well. So the company that imports their whiskey into Japan is called Gaia Flow. Gaia Flow was started by a guy called Taiko Nakamura. Taiko Nakamura is, in a sense, I want to call him the spiritual successor to Masataka Taketsuru in his journey in the whiskey industry here. It's not quite like that. I think I may be romanticizing it just a little bit here. But Taiko Nakamura sounds like a fantastically interesting gentleman, and he was inspired by a trip to Islay in 2012. So I assume he'd been into whiskey for a long time and had some idea in the back of his mind that he wanted to get into the industry. But reportedly, after falling in love with the Kilchoman distillery, which was just starting and just kind of getting its legs back in 2012, he was inspired to take back what he'd learned from Kilchoman back to Japan and start his own distillery. And people might refer to it as a craft distillery. I mean, it's not craft in the way that sort of Nagahama is a craft distillery in Japan, which is absolutely tiny. This is a full outfit. It's a proper full-size distillery, just like Kilchoman. It's not Macallan. It's not Glenfiddich. It's much, much smaller. But it is a full-on style malt whiskey distillery. And he started that distillery himself in February 2017, I believe, is when they actually started distilling. They have 3 stills. 2 of them are made by the world-class, world-renowned still maker Forsyth, who are based in Scotland. They've made stills for Glenlivet, Glengrant, Cavallan, Woodford Reserve, Yamazaki, and even right here on Vancouver Island, Shelter Point. They make some of the best stills, copper pot stills available in the industry, which, is a good start. So they've got 2 of those. One of them is the modern approach. It's the modern approach to distilling with the indirect heat source. But they also have a direct fired still. Now, this is something which is relatively uncommon these days. Used to be very, very common. It used to be pretty much the norm. You'd have coal-fired stills. As if you were at the last SNWS outturn with me, you would have heard me have to correct some mistakes in trivia that I've had, because I was under the impression for a long time that Ardmore was one of the last, or if not the last, distillery in Scotland to use a coal-fired still. Apparently not the case. Glendronach used it far after Ardmore closed down their coal-fired stills. But to this day, you can still get coal-fired still produced whiskey from Yoichi in Hokkaido in Japan. Masataka Taketsuru's sort of crown jewel, his first distillery in Japan. However, this direct fired still is not coal. This is something maybe more traditional, maybe more avant-garde. I need to dig up the history books to see if this has been done before, but they're doing a wood-fired still. Yeah, they're getting in local, apparently good for the environment wood. Like they're not chopping down old forests or anything. They're getting good firewood, and they're doing a wood-fired still. So that's 2 different types of stills, but they have 3. And the third one is potentially the most interesting. The third one is one that I will introduce when we get to that spirit. So what we have here is a distillery called Shizuoka. Shizuoka Distillery from Japan, and I believe this is the first ever time it has been made available in Canada, at the very least in BC. This is incredibly rare, and we are incredibly privileged to be able to have access to these spirits here. I say spirits because they're not whiskies yet. I can't stress that enough. Technically, not a whiskey. And you'll see why in a second. So this is a 3-pack. This special release is not a single bottle. This is a pack of 3 200ml bottles, which I'm about to unveil. And yeah, this is something that they have released in collaboration with Blackadder to a select few markets in very, very limited quantities around the world. You'll see a couple on whiskey auction sites already. I expect them to become pretty popular there in the near future. There's a couple that have been released for festivals over in Europe, small festivals, and they're all slightly different. So our 3-pack is specifically bottled for British Columbia, and we have at least one of the bottles that we have in our 3-pack is not the same as anywhere else. So let's unveil what we have here. It comes in this box in true Blackadder style. They've not spent a lot on packaging. I'm pretty sure, looking at the label, which has the rounded corners, this is probably from an inkjet printer or at least an office laser jet. But that's kind of their style. That's what they do. They're all about the whiskey inside the bottles and paying more attention to that experience than the experience of the packaging. And I applaud them for that. Not that there's anything wrong with the packaging. I don't mean to offend you, Robin, but I very much enjoy that you're not spending hundreds of dollars on putting it in a fancy leather box, for God's sake. This is about the experience, and this is a true geeky whiskey experience as well. So let's open it up and see what we've got. Very cool. All right, so first of all, presentation is pretty cool in here. Again, the labels aren't much to write home about, but look at the shape of these bottles. That is cool. I've never seen stoppers quite like that. And as I mentioned, yeah, you'll see as soon as you see the bottles, this is not whiskey. New Make Spirit. 2 different New Make Spirits, which we'll get into in a second. But that one is looking a little bit more familiar, isn't it? So this is what we have in our lineup here today. And luckily, I got sent some sample bottles, significantly less good looking, but same liquid inside. So I don't have to crack open any of these beautiful, beautiful bottles, which means more available in store to purchase. So let's crack on. So we have this one is the first one we want to do. So this is the New Make Spirit, unpeated New Make Spirit from the wood-fired still. It's hopefully you can see that pretty well. Yeah, it is presented at, assumedly, their casking strength, maybe 63%. All 3 of these are at 63%. So for such a specific number, I'm going to assume it's probably their casking strength. So yeah, we get to try fresh off the still New Make Spirit from one of the most interesting new distilleries in Japan, from a very interesting production method with these wood-fired stills. And what's better than that is we get to try it in direct comparison with the other still, which I haven't mentioned yet. This is cool. New Make Spirit, unpeated, from the Kuruizawa still. So this is what they did with their third still. They managed to buy from the estate of the legendary closed distillery Kuruizawa one of the original stills, and they've put it back into production. The Kuruizawa still is making whiskey once again, and we get to compare these 2 New Make Spirits directly side by side, which is a whiskey geek's dream come true. It really is. You might have noticed there's a little bit missing from these bottles. I did try them the day I got them. I didn't make any notes or anything, and so this is technically a second impression that we're about to get, but it's as good as a first impression. I was paying attention to the quality, but not really paying attention to the flavors. The first time I tried them, I was just excited to rip into it and give it a try, to be honest, and see if they're any good. But Kurosawa, for those of you who aren't aware, is gold dust these days. I just saw a bottle from, I think, sometime in the 60s. Just went on Master of Malt for over £100,000. So that's what, I don't know what the current exchange rate is, $170,000, $180,000. That's a fairly hefty price tag. And any of the more common Kurosawas, and I say more common, they're certainly not common by any state. I've never actually physically seen a bottle of Kurosawa in person, but any of the more available ones on the secondary market, I don't think you're likely to see one for less than $4,000 or $5,000. It is, with all Japanese whiskey, it's incredibly hard to get. So it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to try something from those stills that I can actually afford. And let's get ripping into it. So we'll start with, as I said, the new make spirit from the wood-fired still. See what that looks like. I've got a little trilogy of Glencairn glasses over here, ready to give it a shot. All right. Yeah, that's the Kurosawa still. There we go. So it does say on the bottles as well, exclusive bottling for the Fontana Group, British Columbia, 2019. That's when they were bottled. They were bottled in 2019. Obviously, it is not 2019 anymore, although many of us wish it still was. It is 2020. So these are these were bottled a fair few months ago now. As many of you know, it takes a fairly long time to get everything processed in the system here in BC. But that comes into play much more so with this whiskey. So I'll talk about that a little bit more going into it later. Cool. So new make spirit, definitely not everyone's cup of tea, especially if you're only just getting into whiskey, trying to figure out why it's important to go back and try the new make spirit of some of these more interesting distilleries. You're not going to understand it unless you already kind of understand why that's cool. But for those of you who do, yeah, this is pretty cool. Whiskey is, I would say, the flavors of whiskey, a lot of people put far too much on the cask. And the cask, I mean, actually, Blackadder themselves, one of their taglines is "Cask is king." The cask is obviously very, very important, but you can't make a good whiskey with a good cask alone. You can't just throw any old crap into a cask, a good cask, and call it a good whiskey. You need to start with a fantastic base spirit. And not all base spirits are created equally. I've had some very subpar new make spirits, and I've had some absolutely mind-blowing new make spirits. This is definitely more towards the mind-blowing end of the spectrum. What you want to look for in a new make spirit is, right off the bat, a nice harmonious complexity of flavors and aromas that play off together, and you can sort of not only see the potential but enjoy the current state of. This being presented at 63 does smell almost exactly like when I used to work at a distillery. Actually, it smells like 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was just stood in the still room at Shelter Point. Yeah, it's unmistakably single malt new make spirit. There's nothing else quite like it. People looking at this thinking, oh, well, that's just expensive vodka. No, it really, really is not. The idea for vodka is to distill the absolute living crap out of it until there's no flavor left, and all you're left with is the smoothest, most flavorless alcohol possible. This is the exact opposite. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to get rid of all of those flavors, all of those fatty acids, all of those esters. You don't want to get rid of them. You want to encourage them in the the distillate that is going to become whiskey. This is, if you're familiar more with the Irish poitín, this is more poitín than moonshine, right? This is not corn spirit. This is single malt barley in its truest distilled form, and it smells just beautiful. So I'm getting a lot of honey, rich honey on this one. I'm getting mangoes. I'm getting a slight burning sensation on the inside of my nostrils. I'm gonna taste this. I would normally spend a little bit more time nosing it. I'm going to taste it right away so that I can add some water, because I have a feeling it's going to change dramatically. And that's something I've not done yet, is add water to this. Oh, that is funky. That is bananas. That is almost, it's got that same kind of funky, mushroomy thing that Springbank has. This is a little dusty. It's very rustic flavored. Yeah, I mean, I would never guess in a million years that this was made from a wood-fired still, because that's just not a thing that happens. But knowing that in advance, it just makes sense with the flavors going on here. It's a little bit more. It's just a little bit more old school in its flavor profile there. Really, really interesting. So let's give it a few drops of water. I'm going to go pretty aggressive on the water here. As I said, it's New Make Spirit and it's 63%. So let's give it a couple of full pipettes full there. Let's see where that takes us. Oh, interesting. Smells almost coastal now. There's not in an unpleasant way at all, but almost a slight fishiness, like I mean, in more of a smoked salmon way than a fishmonger's closing down sale kind of way. It's not a bad fishiness by any means, but it's very coastal, a little bit salty, a little bit gamey almost. Very cool. The tropical fruit notes are still there. A little bit more of an orchard fruit thing going on as well, maybe apples and pears. Really unique, really interesting experience. Yeah. You can see why I'm sure it happens these days, but in the olden days, it was very, very common for distillery workers to take a couple of flasks home of the New Make Spirit and enjoy it on their own after work. When New Make Spirit is good, it is damn good. Now, I have to admit, the price tag on these is very, very good. Don't get me wrong; it's an absolute incredible value. The price tag on these, which we'll get to at the end, I wouldn't normally pay that much for just the New Make Spirit. I think the the dark one over here is very much the load bearing whiskey on the price tag. But having the opportunity to try this is, well, it's a unique, fantastic opportunity that you would only normally have if you spent thousands of dollars on a holiday to Japan. So this is something uber cool that is actually accessible to us here in BC. So yeah, thanks Blackadder, and thank you Jay for bringing these in. Let's try the Kuruwazawa still. So as I mentioned, normally you'd have to pay hundreds, if not thousands, well, actually thousands, if not tens of thousands, let's be honest, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to enjoy Kuruwazawa still whiskey. So this is not Kuruwazawa. This is Shizuoka, but this is a homage to Kuruwazawa, using the same equipment with the same ethos that Kuruwazawa was made with. Lots of these traditional methods. They're using, most wooden equipment. They're actually using, I think it was Oregon pine or something for their washbacks. So they're using really interesting rustic style equipment in this, as well as the traditional Kuruwazawa still. So let's give this one a try as well. Lighter. Definitely lighter than the wood-fired still. A little bit more well-balanced. I'm searching for similar flavors because in my head it makes sense that they would be similar. It's the same ingredients, it's the same mash, just a different still. But so I'm looking for those tropical fruits, and I'm not really finding it so much. I'm trying to figure out what's there instead. There's fruit, but it's not that sort of mango-like tropical. I think it's blueberries. It's that little softer, almost more perfumed fruityness that you get from a blueberry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to need some water and to open that up a little. But let's try it. It's neat. Right off the bat, even though these are both 63%, there is so little burn. This is the least aggressive, like full strength new make I think I've possibly ever had. A testament to the designers of the original Kurosawa stills, and probably one of the reasons Kurosawa is so legendary in the Japanese whiskey industry. This is like this. It's so light, I feel like it could just float away. That is absolutely beautiful. Incredibly delicate. If anything, it reminds me of the old style scappers. If you remember, with the extra long fermentation that you'd get on that scapper, gave it a really nice floral fruitiness. The old 14 and 16-year-old scapper releases. It's got a similar kind of feel to those, but this is 63% new make. That is absolutely insane. I really hope that we keep this relationship going with both Blackadder and Fontana here at the Dram Association here at the Strat, because when these guys start producing whiskey at a more commercial rate and releasing it, God, I hope we're around to see that. I really cannot wait to see where this progresses and where this goes, and hopefully we'll be the place to get it here in BC. This is very cool. I almost forgot to add water because it almost feels like it doesn't need it, but let's find out what happens when we do add a little bit of water here. I'm not going to add as much this time. It's not as fiery. It doesn't feel like it needs as much water to let it open up. It's nice and oily though. I don't know if you can see, put up to the light, I don't know if you can see the oils moving around in there. It's nice and viscous. That's really cool. Again, coastal on the nose now. The water is really, I have no idea if this distillery is even anywhere near the coast, but something they're doing in the process is adding a little bit of that coastal influence. And it's not the maturation, because remember, this is not matured. There's something in the process that is adding just that little bit of minerality, a little bit of salt, some sort of not actual salt necessarily. Again, it's just the essence. It's just the idea of salts planted in your head from the chemical compounds in here. But mixed with the minerality, this actually almost, there's a white wine thing going on here. This reminds me of having moule frite or mussels in the white wine sauce with chips or fries in Belgium. This is got the minerality of those mussel shells with the high acidity of maybe like a Gewürztraminer or a Riesling. That's so sweet, acidic wine. As you might know, for anyone who is really into wine, I don't know much about wine. I don't know if Riesling and Gewürztraminer are actually known to be highly acidic wines. They just feel that way to me. I don't really have the palate for wine, unfortunately. So please correct me in the comments section if I'm talking out my arse. But yeah, really neat. The honey that I first got on the nose of the wood-fired still, the honey's kicking back in here. So that honey is not necessarily from the still, it's probably more from the fermentation methods. That is really neat. The difference between these two new makes is surprisingly big. There's a lot going on in both of these, and as a bit of a whiskey geek myself, I am absolutely thrilled that I had the opportunity to compare these two side by side. And I'm hoping, by the way, at some point that we'll be able to get together physically as a club and try these together, so that we can all have the experience of this, whether or not you end up buying your own set. I know there's a lot of people out there thinking I'm going to buy a set and probably never open it. I know that there's a couple of people I let slip the secret to who are already planning to get 2 or 3 sets so they can open one and keep 1 or 2. We have a few coming, so that is theoretically possible. I don't know how big the demand is going to be on this when I click the button to make it live at the end of this video, but we'll find out. But yeah, really interesting pair of new makes. As I said, that's not the weight pairing whiskey or spirit in this set of 3, though. I'm actually going to reveal the price right now before we get into this. The regular price on this is $209.90 tax in. So pre-tax, that's $182.52. The sale price pre-tax for Drama Association members, as soon as we click the go button at the end of this video to make it live online, is $156.43, making these approximately $50 each. Is this worth $50? Debatable. I mean, for the experience of having these two together, for me, that's worth $100. So absolutely. Individually as drinks, I mean, it depends how much you like to geek out about high proof New Make Spirit. To be honest, I think worth it even at $50. Maybe 40-ish would be about right. This one, however, you might notice if I might show you the sample bottles I've got. This one's got significantly less in it already. This is absolutely worth $50. I would say this is worth the ticket price of the entire set of 3 samples on its own. So this, as you might be able to read, I'm not sure if how good your eyes are there. This is a peated. It says New Make Spirit on here, but it's not. It's 25 months old. So in many parts of the world, this would be considered a whiskey in its own right. This is 25 years. Jesus, I wish. 25-month-old spirit from the Kuruizawa still. I've been told, it doesn't say that on the label. From the Kuruizawa still, but it's also peated and matured for 25 months in a wine cask. And look at that color, just beautiful. This is a stunning whiskey. I'm going to call it whiskey for all intents and purposes. It is a whiskey. 25 months makes it a whiskey legally in quite a few places. Australia being one of them, where it's legally 24 months for a spirit to be considered whiskey in Australia. So I'm going to go back to my Australian distilling roots when I used to work at Bakery Hill and call this a whiskey, for crying out loud. So this Shizuoka, this is the showpiece of this set. Let's give it a shot, shall we? All right. Not an actual shot. I'm not going to shoot it. Don't worry. I've got a Glencairn. I'm going to sip it. This is not something you want to be shooting, because this is also 63%. Oh, yeah. Just feast your eyes on that. Rich, beautiful coloring. I'll give it a bit of a swirl. See the viscosity. Yeah, we go. Sorry, I'm still getting used to this whole video thing. If I'm holding the glass up here sometimes and down here, I'll get there. By video 5, I'll be, well, let's face it, by video 50, I'll be about getting it maybe quite right. But this is something very special. Oh. So right off the bat, 63% again. I'm not entirely sure. I touched my face. Hang on. I've probably done that a couple of times. I'm very bad at this. I am in isolation right now. I'm the only person here, so hopefully I'm fine. I did just do my hands, but just to show you, hand sanitizer. Thank you again to Sheringham. I'll try my best not to touch my face. When I'm in public, I wear gloves now because I hate the feeling of latex on my face. So whenever I wear gloves, I'm not going to touch my face because I hate it. But yeah, I'm doing my best. We're all doing our best here in this new set of circumstances. Okay. I just realized doing my hands with the Sheringham, this is just going to taste like gin for a second. I'm going to let that evaporate off. All right. So yeah, 63% once again. I don't know how that works. If this is the casking strength, it may have. We may have some very thirsty angels over in Japan right now if this has not gone down. Perhaps this is just the strength that they decided to release everything at. Maybe they're in a part of Japan where the weather means that it actually goes up slightly. Maybe they're in a part of Japan where miraculously it stays at exactly the same level. I have no idea what's going on here. Maybe they just misprinted the labels. Maybe it's actually 58. No idea. But we do know it is cast strength. And this is, it just looks like tea. It's amazing. All right. I can't describe the thing that's really hitting me with this whiskey because I don't actually know what it is, but I know where it's found. There is a smell that you get in almost every interactive museum in the UK. You know, these museums where you go around and it's got, this is what a corner store looked like in 1890. This is what a wartime bunker looked like. Anytime they are producing a smoke smell for historical effect, that is the smell I'm getting on here. This reminds me of being packed on a bus with a bunch of school kids and eating cheese and cucumber sandwiches for lunch. This is a British museum. This is a British museum smell going on right here. It's a little leathery, some dark fruit going on there, a lot of prunes and plums and raisins. I'd love to know what kind of wine's going on here. I don't think it says. My bottle doesn't. Let's see if this one does. Yeah, it just says wine cask. Robin, if you happen to be listening, or Nakamura-san, if you happen to be watching and want to give us an answer in the comments, that would be awesome. I won't hold my breath because you're probably very busy people. But I'll try and find out what kind of wine cask went into this, because I'd kind of personally like to know. But yeah, that's some lovely, deep, rich fruit notes going on there with that smoke. If I was tasting this blind and I had to guess from the nose alone what the hell I was drinking, I would absolutely say this is one of those red wine cask long rows. We talked about this a few months ago. I've not had one of those for sale in BC yet. I've managed to try a couple from private collectors who've managed to bring it with them from Scotland or elsewhere. Absolutely fantastic whiskies that I'm quite enamored with. We had an SNWS that had that same kind of effect, a red wine cask Ardmore a few months ago. This is even more. It's got that same kind of Springbank long row funk to it again, same as that first New Make Spirit had with that wood-fired still, which makes me question whether this is the Brewer's Hour still, the wood-fired still. Again, I was told Brewer's Hour still. It doesn't say on the label, so I'm going to take the information I got from my sources within the company as gospel at this point, because I don't have anything else that would say otherwise apart from my nose, which, let's face it, is less reliable than a person that works for the company that makes it. It's a good nose. It's not that good. But yeah, this is absolutely delicious on the nose. It really is. Mm. My God. I'm going to do some digging, and if I find any information, I'll put it in the comments. I'd love to know where they sourced the barley for the peated whiskey. I know when they first opened the Way of Whiskey book. I'm blanking on the author's name of the Way of Whiskey. Oh, the guy is doing the movie right now. He does the Whiskey Atlas. It'll come to me. I'm very sorry for forgetting your name. But yeah, The Way of Whiskey, absolutely fantastic book about Japanese whiskey. He mentioned, it was written a few years ago now, that they were importing barley from Scotland, but they were planning to get local barley. They were just working on, right specs and sources and whatnot. It'd be interesting to know. I would guess this is from Port Ellen Maltings. It has all the hallmarks that I would expect from a Port Ellen Maltings. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is much more Isla than mainland now. This has gone away from that long row and into the realm of Lagavulins and Kalilas. Let's see what some water does to this one. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please do write them down below. I will be checking this. This is this is my socializing while we all get through this, is checking the comments on these YouTube videos. So please do get involved and interact, because I can do with the company. I mean, my girlfriend's upstairs playing video games, so I don't know if you've heard the term video game widow. Yeah, I feel a little bit like that right now, but I kid. I sent her up there while I did the video so you can stay quiet. Don't worry. But yes, please do keep me company digitally. I'd love to chat with you guys about not only what whiskies I'm drinking here on these videos, but what whiskies are keeping you going throughout this whole event. Please let us know what you're drinking at home. Honestly, water hasn't changed the smell of this much at all. I'm getting pretty much exactly the same as I was pre-water. I'm almost second guessing myself as to whether I actually added water. You just watched me, whether I did or not, so I'll watch back and find out. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm going to add a couple more drops after I taste it, just to make sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it tastes a little different now. I think I did add water. If I didn't, I'm going mad. But yeah, this is a little bit more sweet than it was before. A little bit of caramel. Yeah, just a really, really cool dram. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. So it is with great delight and absolute pleasure that I present these three fantastic Blackadder releases from Shizuoka, which I mentioned in the last video. You probably weren't going to see these coming. I certainly didn't see these coming, but I'm incredibly grateful that they're here. If you need some Blackadder Shizuoka to get you through this epidemic, then it is for sale now. Right now, it is for sale at strathliquor.com. So log on to strathliquor.com. You can get your special pricing right there. You don't have to be a Premier subscriber. You have to be a Dram Association member, but you can become a Dram Association member at checkout. We are not offering shipping right now. Canada Post has halted all shipping that requires proof of age as a way of reducing the amount of human contact that the delivery guys have to make, which is honestly fantastic precaution to be making. So sorry for those of you who don't live in downtown Victoria. If you're looking to have these shipped outside of Victoria, please feel free to buy them online. Use the pick up in store option, but leave us a note saying you'd like them to be shipped when available. Once that happens, we can organize shipping. But if you live in downtown Victoria, I'm more than happy to walk over and drop them off to you. If you're socially isolating, then I'll have you on the phone. If you're in an apartment, I will buzz you and I will leave it next to the buzzer. I will take 10 steps back and wave to you as you come and pick them up. If you are downtown and you'd like to just pick them up from the store, that's absolutely fine as well. The store is remaining open until unless we're told otherwise. We're taking every precaution possible, including sterilizing all of the baskets and making sure that everything is as safe as possible with social distancing and all these precautions. But also, we're now doing daily deliveries to everywhere in the capital or regional district. So if you live out in Langford or in Sydney or anywhere closer than Langford or Sydney, we will be driving around dropping off things that were bought online every day except from Saturday. So if you buy these right now, for example, then you can have them delivered to your door tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to be driving around tomorrow being Sunday, for those of you who are watching this later on. I will be driving around dropping these whiskies off to anyone who purchases them. So yeah, enjoy these whiskies. Please stay safe, wash your hands. Apparently, we'll be getting more hand sanitizer, not just from sharing them, but from other distilleries as well. So if you do find yourself a victim of the hoarders and not able to get some hand sanitizer, please let me know and I'll see what I can do to try and get you some when we get another delivery in. Stay safe out there, and above all, be kind to each other and enjoy a nice dram. Slanchivar, everybody. I will see you tomorrow for another new whiskey release. Slanchivar.
Here's to whiskey kisses with the peachy taste of sin.